welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube or podcast on Spotify if you're listening by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. So today we're going to tackle the topic of procrastination. Now this may seem like it's a similar topic to avoiding and eliminating distractions, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what procrastination is. You know, things like avoiding tasks that seem difficult, things like delaying or putting tasks off or projects off and then leaving them until the last minute. If you are a person who does this, there are going to be some very clear defining signs that you are a chronic procrastinator. So what is procrastination? We've all fallen into this habitual self-sabotaging trap many times in our life. In fact, we're probably doing this subconsciously on a daily occurrence, right? So you're probably procrastinating about something daily, and there's no coincidence that it's probably very similar things that you're procrastinating about, whether it's doing your cleaning, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's doing your meal prep, whether it's leaving for work, and the list goes on. What does it look like though? It's avoidance, delaying, putting off tasks, especially if we know they're going to be mentally or physically taxing or challenging or difficult or unenjoyable. So signs that you may be a serial procrastinator. Are you late for everything? Do you find yourself finding lots of different tasks to do before you have to be somewhere on time, and as a result you're just not on time for that occasion, that event, whatever it might be? It might be that you need to be at a birthday party on time, but you've decided that you want to shave your legs before you go, even though you hadn't factored that time in previously. Last minute deadlines, so obviously people who know that there is a project due or an assignment due, and they are, not working hard towards that deadline when they've been given the project, but leaving it until literally the last day, the last hour, the last week to get organized for that. And as a result, we end up stressed, right? We end up feeling like we have too much to do in a short space of time. These types of sayings are telltale signs that you are a chronic procrastinator. I'll get to it eventually. Okay, I'll get there. I don't feel like it. I don't feel motivated enough. That's one I hear quite common, and I can pretty much pinpoint that client that I'm coaching is a chronic procrastinator if they say they don't feel motivated to do something, because that in itself is a form of procrastination, relying on our feelings and our emotions to dictate whether or not we, take on a task that we may not feel like doing. So a form of procrastination is literally giving into a negative feeling and sitting with it, and then basically missing the target altogether because of that, convincing ourselves that feeling is the reason why we shouldn't do something. Other sayings that you will probably notice that you will use if you're a chronic procrastinator is, I don't have time. I just didn't have enough time. I didn't leave myself enough time is another one. I'm really poorly organized is another one. People who just admit that they don't have good organizational skills, but at the same time they don't particularly want to do anything about that. They don't think about changing it. They take on being disorganized as a personality trait. And unfortunately, this is a bit of a cop-out, because I used to be a very disorganized person. I was very unorganized. My life was constantly scattered, and I didn't keep a record of anything. And I thought that this was just the way that I was, but it was the way that I was operating that really counted towards this constant procrastination, putting things off, being late for everything, the list goes on. Another sign is that you find yourself scrolling through socials instead of doing the thing, instead of taking on the task, instead of just, making sure that you commit yourself to your training, making your meals, doing the work, the uni, the chores, finding reasons not to do something instead of simply doing it. So if you find yourself using this dialogue with yourself, or even with your coach, with your partner, with your friends, oh, I can't because X, Y, Z. Oh, no, I don't want to because XYZ. And this is totally fine for you to not want to do some things that that you don't feel comfortable with, but things that you know in the back of your mind that you need to do or that you want to do, and then you're making reasons not to do them, right? So you're finding reasons not to do them. And if I could think of all of the reasons not to go to the gym tonight or not to go for my walk, I probably wouldn't end up doing it. So this is where this dialogue, the inner dialogue starts, and then we start using that language with other people, which is basically a long list of excuses. So the next reason or sign that you could be a serial procrastinator is wondering how everybody else fits it in, wondering how people make the deadlines, how they are able to get it done, how the person that you are most envious of is able to achieve what they are achieving in the space of time that they've been given, and separating yourself from them and using this idea that you're time poor and that they're not. We all know that everybody is talking about how time poor they are, and yet not everybody is procrastinating, right? So even the busiest of busy people who run multiple businesses have figured out a way to get the important tasks done, to not avoid those tasks, and to eventually end up with what they want in life, right? So there's no sort of coincidence there. So finding negative reasons specifically why your life or lifestyle or the universe is holding you back from doing something you want or need to do. So you may be procrastinating about your goals, about what you're wanting to achieve for yourself. You may be procrastinating about diving into those goals and even starting them because you are using every reason you can find not to dive into them. And yes, this is highly triggering, and no, I don't care. When we make these statements towards people and we challenge people on their thoughts, people can get really defensive about that. I can get inboxes and messages of, you don't know what my life is like. I didn't do this vlog for you specifically, or for one person individually. If something hits a raw nerve with you, it probably means for you that that's where you're having trouble reflecting upon that, where you're sitting in that mode of thinking that the universe is against you, or that your life and your lifestyle will never permit you to chase the dreams that you have, or that the way that things are structured, now and forever is exactly how they're going to be, and that you will continue to give yourself reasons not to do something. That is a form of procrastination. And admitting that as human beings that we do that is very difficult. I am a procrastinator, not as much as I used to be, but sure I do, mostly with my training. I know that I could end up at the gym right on time for when in my mind I want to be there, but I have a little bit of an attitude towards starting my workout. And in my mind, I will find lots of different things to do before I go to the gym, almost as a way to delay getting there. And I realize that half an hour that I spent fluffing around and cleaning the house could have been used commuting to the gym, which is only 5 minutes away, and getting into my workout. So I admittedly, as a human being, can tell you that I'm a chronic procrastinator with my training sessions. I would rather work than train, so I will always pick my work over my training. But that's what procrastination is, favoring something that is more enjoyable or more entertaining and picking that instead of the task at hand or the job that you need to get done, and basically just delaying the inevitable. And then you end up being there too late, or you end up not having enough time to complete that task that you needed or wanted to do. So the next point would be choosing to do fun things instead of challenging things. It seems really simple, but we're all doing it, And you could probably even apply this reference to life, drinking alcohol, partying, people who choose to party every single weekend instead of maybe working out on the weekends, maybe instead of saying no to alcohol. This can also be a form of procrastination for their health goals, because in their mind, they know they don't want to do this as much, that they need to make some different choices for themselves, but they're choosing the fun option over and over and over again because it doesn't feel fun to do something that's challenging. So working with this principle in life of I will only do something that is fun or enjoyable is going to work temporarily for for you where you are right now, it's going to feel great, right? But long term, you will never get to where you actually want to be in the bigger picture. And as a result, you end up self-sabotaging. So, procrastination is a form of self-sabotage. We kind of know that. So, examples. I'm going to use very practical examples in the fitness industry with nutrition. It could even apply to other things in your lifestyle. You may actually identify that it's not just with your training and nutrition, but a few other things. So, avoiding your workouts daily and missing your time window to train. This is literally my procrastination, which I'm trying to work on, struggling with it, but I'm much better than I used to be with avoiding my training and procrastinating and doing everything else except training. Putting off paying bills, okay? This is where people find themselves really financially disorganized and in lots of trouble, putting all of your fines on spur, or putting yourself in a position where you don't pay a bill because you're worried about money, and then you end up being overdue, and then you end up having to pay a fee, and the list goes on. So there's a procrastination in the financial aspect as well. Distracting yourself on purpose is a form of procrastination, okay? So literally picking whatever you can see in your sight to do instead of the tasks that you have at hand for the day. People will find ways to procrastinate because it's far more comfortable and it's far more enjoyable to remain in a position where you are not mentally or physically challenged. So procrastinating seems like a logical thing to do because that means you don't have to struggle. You don't have to do the hard thing. You don't have to tackle something. You don't have to concentrate. The avoidance of concentration, the avoidance of being challenged, of learning, of being humbled is only a death sentence for your goals. You cannot say you want something for yourself, but then avoid the very thing that you are required to do to achieve that. Committing to something like a fitness journey, like changing your nutrition, and coming up with every reason to back out. Cancelling last minute, putting it off. We've all done it. We've all gone, yeah, I really want to go and, get a remedial massage, or I really want to, book in with a psychologist, or I really want to get a coach online, and you do the consult and you go through the whole process. Maybe you might feel like you are so excited for that journey. And then when it comes to the nitty-gritty, maybe it's the financial, maybe it's the person saying to you, hey, I need a commitment from you to promise to me that this is what you're going to follow through with, and you back out. That's a form of procrastination, okay? A form of procrastination that inevitably leads to that self-sabotage. Putting off your fitness journey. This is probably the most common one I see as a coach, is the amount of people who have told me, oh, I was going to message you, or, oh yeah, I mean to sign up, or I was meaning to do that, but I keep putting it off for some reason. Now, I don't care. I'm not bothered. I'm overbooked for coaching. So when people come at me with this stuff, I don't have any response. I'm like, okay, cool. Good for you that you wanted to coach 3 months ago and you still haven't come on board. But that probably says more about what you want for yourself and what you know you're probably going to have to do to chase that goal, right? And so it's a form of this like avoidance and procrastinating about it because you're waiting for the right time, or you're worried about finances and you want to pay for something else at the time. I think that's completely fine. I don't think coaching is the be all and end all, but putting it off because you've got every reason and excuse that you can pull towards yourself, because you are worried and concerned about failing, or you're worried about not doing well, or you're worried about disappointing yourself, or you're worried about disappointing your coach. That's a big one I hear is, I'm worried about disappointing you. Mariah, you're so on point with everything and you've got your head screwed on and you've got your shit together. I don't want to coach with you. And then you find out that I'm a procrastinator and that I've got all these deep-seated issues with committing myself to something. Newsflash, that's part of why I'm a coach, is to help people with that. My job isn't to be hypercritical of people, it's to spot these signs and to work on them together. But you can only do that if you let someone in, if you commit to something, if you understand that there is going to be a difficult component to what you're committing to, right? There is going to be a difficult aspect, and that's what it takes for achieving many wonderful things in life, is that you will go through the teething process, you will go through the difficult stage, and there will be many difficult stages and phases within that project as well. So the next point would be Putting off your meal prep even when you have put aside the time to do it. This one is massive and so common with my clients is that they put off meal prep, they have no meals prepared, they have no food in the fridge, they can see that they're running out of groceries and yet they don't do the grocery order or they don't go to the shops until they have literally nothing in the pantry. So what I do with my grocery shop is I make sure I've ordered enough for a week and a half. And when I do my order again, it's a week later. So I still have enough food to get me through the next few days. Being more prepared actually gives us time back. And that's one thing you've got to see with the procrastination of things like meal prep is that you're only putting off something that's going to actually save you time in the long run. So by procrastinating, you're making more work for yourself anyway. The next point and sign that you are probably a chronic procrastinator is things like last minute birthday or Christmas gift shopping. Probably not a bad one, but certainly a sign that, okay, you knew this person's birthday was coming. You knew that Christmas was coming up and yet you are shopping the night before. I would say men are probably worse for this. I know I'm being very general and stereotypical with this and I'm sorry to do that, but the amount of hubbies that are out Christmas Eve shopping for presents, I get it. It's overwhelming, but when you all go together, you'll probably be in these giant packs and it's going to be even more stressful doing it last minute. So last minute Christmas or gift shopping is a big one that I've seen procrastination of a task that probably isn't that hard and when we actually get it done. Last minute uni assignments or work projects, probably the most common thing I see in the way of study and uni students is that they are, really stressed already. They're already trying to, basically hold a lot of information. They're trying to absorb a lot of information. They're trying to make sure it sticks. And then on top of that, they leave their assignments until the night before. And they study for their exams. Haven't even read the chapters until the night before. There is only so many times where this will actually work for you. There are only so many times where you will pass the exam no matter how intelligent you are if you study the night before. There are only so many times where if you go to take on an assignment and it is literally due in a couple of hours that you will finish it on time. And then there is that looming disappointment that you may get if you fail. And the issue here is that you knew, weeks prior, you knew about this assignment and yet you chose to do the fun things instead. And as a result, you've swapped yourself a very stressful and sleepless evening, if not a couple of days, and potentially a failed assignment. So, and that works for like normal work as well. It's not just uni. Putting off house renovations for decades. This is so common. I found even within my immediate circle, I've seen people say that they're going to do something, that they are going to rebuild or add a room, or they're going to demolish, or they're going to renovate, the baby room, or they're going to change the garden around, and they never get around to doing it. A form of procrastination is never actually properly committing to the project, speaking about it, but never actually cementing that in their plans, right? And so this form of procrastination is purely just not doing anything at all, It's not even avoidance, it's just not actioning. So this one I think is probably one of the most irritating versions of procrastination because it feels like false promises to yourself and to other people. Not just with renovations, but this intention that you have in the beginning to do something, and yet there is just no action behind that. Literally nothing that is driving you towards that goal that you've spoken into existence or that project that you're wanting to take on. It is just a project because you have procrastinated about even just commencing the plans, right? So, allowing tasks to pile up and stressing when you no longer have time to complete them all at once. How many people have been in that position where you have a list as long as anything to complete for the week, and for some reason you just decided you'd rather play with your toes for 4 days? That you would rather do nothing, that you would rather, and we would all rather lay on our backs in the sun. We'd rather take a holiday than work for a week. But the issue then is we're left with this lump of work to do towards the end of the work week. Or it might be at home, it might be your chores that are piling up. And all of a sudden, in the same day, you've got to do your meal prep and your washing, and you've got to make sure that you drop the kids off because you got that task as well, and then there's no room for anything to go wrong. The contingency plan is not there. This is the issue with letting things pile up and procrastinating and doing fun things instead, watching TV instead, scrolling instead, is that the more you try and squish into a day, the more that could potentially go wrong in that day, right? And then you are left with one of the worst days you'll ever experience because you were not prepared, because you did not take those meaningless tasks on earlier on in the week. You didn't try and bite it off in small chunks. You didn't try and do small things here and there daily, and you were left with this massive pile. And then we complain about having the massive pile of things to do at the end of the week. I will admit, I actually don't find myself in this situation anymore. I used to. I was really bad for leaving my washing to the point where I had 6 loads of washing to do when I was about 19 years old. 10 years ago now. I've learnt my lesson. But as a result, because I know that I used to be a chronic procrastinator, and this is coming from someone who just was, I was just that person who left everything to the last minute. I now do the same thing on the same day every week. So I've said this in previous podcasts. I do my washing on the same day every week. I do my meal prep on the same day every week. I'm habitual with those meaningless tasks that may feel monotonous, but because I'm habitual with them and I break them up throughout the week, I'm not left with this massive pile of work to do at the end of the week, and I'm not feeling overwhelmed. And that's the thing, right? If you want to feel less stressed, if you want to feel less overwhelmed, if you say you want to have a more organized lifestyle, you must reflect, look at the bigger picture, look at what you can change, what you're currently doing that isn't working, and then obviously figure out a plan moving forward, how to become more organized. Now, obviously, another few signs is overbooking your schedule. This is bad, right? So many people overbook their schedule. Like, I've used this in other podcasts where people are committing to birthday parties that they don't want to go to, or committing to carols by candlelight and you couldn't stand Christmas carols, right? Committing to being in the P&C committee, it might be, committing to baking a cake for an event when you didn't really want to do that. Committing to things that you know that you can't fit in, and when you overbook your schedule, you end up then procrastinating about the really big stuff that you probably know you should and want to work on, and you end up doing these silly little things that you've committed to that really mean nothing in the end. And this is where we end up with such a deficiency and a shortage in time because of this overcommitment, right? So this is also tying into that podcast I did about stress and being disorganized, is that we put too much on our plate, then we don't get to tackle the big stuff, and we overcomplicate the small stuff, and we end up with next to nothing for ourselves or what we wanted for maybe our family and our future at the end of the week. Constantly feeling disorganized, right, is a big one. As I mentioned earlier, this feeling that you're disorganized, but then, as I said, admitting or thinking that it's a personality trait and not boiling down to the small decisions that we make daily and internally. So, now I've explained all of the warning signs for procrastination. Why do we do it? Fear, anxiety, worry, dread, these all sound familiar? In other words, we have these strong emotions attached to the tasks that we have at hand as human beings. We have these strong aversions to completing something that is difficult, right? How many times this week have you avoided something because you thought it was going to be hard? How many times this week or today have you put something off because it wasn't fun or it didn't seem interesting? And this is where we see procrastination rear its ugly head. It becomes a monster in our life because we entertain this idea that everything has to feel fucking dandy all the time for us to do it. When I change my thinking around this, myself, and when I see my clients where it clicks for them, where they realize stuff is tough, tasks are hard, chasing your dreams is difficult. It doesn't feel like rainbows and sunshine 24/7. In fact, most of it doesn't feel very good at all until you get there. And you have these small moments of realization that, I have to get my hands dirty. Even though I don't want to, I have to get my hands dirty so I can accomplish what I set out to. So procrastinating is avoiding getting your hands dirty. Defiance to hard work. I don't know whether or not this is, again, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't talk too much about things like childhood trauma, but when people are defiant to hard work, it's almost like they live in a world they've created for themselves where they stay here, in their bubble, in their circle, where everything feels safe and comfortable and easy. The issue with that, though, is that if they want anything out of this circle, or they need anything out of this circle, might be change for your health, that getting out of that circle is near impossible if they only want to do what they've been doing. So this is the procrastination of change, right? I've talked about this in other podcasts. Being able to normalize the idea that to chase these goals that you have, to chase the dreams you have, for what you want for yourself, what you say you want for yourself, that you've got to break out of that bubble and that cycle that you're in. So defiance of hard work on that topic is literally just saying no to hard work, saying no to anything that seems slightly difficult, getting frustrated really quickly and quitting, quite brutally, disliking having to put effort in. I really struggle not to get frustrated with attitudes towards effort. If somebody says to me, oh, but it's too hard, or I'm too tired, or it's too hard, or I'm too bored, it infuriates me internally that we are that privileged as a society to allow these very surface level emotions to dictate the reason why we don't work hard, to dictate the reason why we give up on changes that may literally lead you to a different place in your life that you keep saying that you want. So procrastination is not just a particular decision, it's also an attitude. It's an attitude towards your life. It's an attitude towards difficulty. It's an attitude towards adversity. And obviously in my previous podcast, I've talked about adversity. So procrastination, I wouldn't call it laziness, but it's basically purposeful avoidance. Very purposeful avoidance. And we know that we do it. So another reason why we do it is that we are expecting someone else to do it for us. Probably happens a little bit less nowadays, where we realize we have to take a lot of responsibility for what happens in our life if we want to see change. But I have seen previously in coaching, some people expecting the coach to do all of the work, to pick up all the pieces when things haven't gone the way they wanted to because maybe they procrastinated, maybe they put things off, and then blaming everything else as to why they didn't achieve their goals. So this procrastination can often lead to this idea that we are not responsible, that it's someone else's responsibility to make sure that I achieve that goal. So part of this is basically avoiding responsibility. Avoiding changes in behavior to continue our comfortable way of thinking / existing. I've been there. Avoiding changing the way I think, the way I behave, so that I can just stay in my bubble, that bubble I talked about earlier, so that I didn't have to experience what it was like being out in the cold, so that I didn't have to experience something that was slightly frightening. But I'm going to say 99% of the time when I made decisions to break out of my bubble and to change my behaviors and to reflect, and this is probably going to resonate with any other, listeners that have done this as well, is that it's not that bad. Changing the way that we think and the way that we behave can actually help us have a different experience. So it might be avoiding changing your habits with your exercise. You may just literally convince yourself that the way that you are and what you've been doing, it might not feel good or right or pleasing or satisfying, but you are more afraid of implementing changes in your behavior than you are of changing. It's really strange. Like, it's almost like people they just want to avoid changing so that they can remain stale. So I guess it's basically a bit of a flip. It is really, if you've ever thought about turning over a new leaf, it's a flip in attitude. and it's a daily flip, because we all have those negative thinking patterns, the procrastination monster that rears its ugly head every single day. But it is a flip in thinking almost the polar opposite of what you're thinking in order to continue to procrastinate. Another reason we could be procrastinating is, and interestingly enough, not many people think about this, the addiction to stress or chaos. Literally not actually knowing any other way to live. You know, you've lived in chaos and you've lived with this addiction to shit going wrong all the time, that you're not quite sure how to live with it going right. You're not quite sure how to acknowledge when your life is going really well, when you're organized, when you're tackling things head on, and you've conditioned yourself to this world of last minute, late, oh, I don't have time, putting too much into your schedule, etc. And you are right in the middle of this fiery flame of stress and chaos, and that is how you exist. And that's a pretty dangerous place to be, because we need to normalize the idea that chaos and stress is not a natural state, and it shouldn't be. But yet, for some reason, we're finding now more than ever that people thrive in a position of chaos. And I don't mean actually thrive, I mean they thrive from chaos because it gives them a feeling of excitement, something to focus on that isn't the hard work required to get themselves out of the chaos. So it's easy to fall into, I'm stressed, I'm overbooked, I don't have time, because people, when we hear that, people just say to us, their reply is, oh, must be awful, oh, yeah, I totally get it, I'm stressed too. So it's easy. It's easy to say that. It's easy to procrastinate because it's easy to say that you're different. You have less hours than the average person, etc. Now, this isn't coming from somebody, because trust me, I've had this continuously for weeks and months on end. This isn't coming from someone who's a mum. I'm not a mum, so I don't have children in my life that take up time, etc. But I do know dozens and dozens, hundreds of mums who are literally time poor because they have children. They have multiple children. There is a woman I follow on social media who has 7 children, and she still exercises daily. She holds down a full-time job. She keeps the house clean, etc. She's not going crazy, but she does figure out how to just tackle things instead of avoiding them. And that's probably what I will say in part of this, you know, how do we deal with it? How do we get better with this? Is that there are going to be lots of people in your life that you're going to meet that you've spotted don't procrastinate. Or it seems like they're action people. They just do things. Look at the way they behave. Look at the things they do. Look at the way they speak to themselves, they speak to others. And use this as an example of avoiding procrastination, you know, just getting in and getting it done. Just do it. This whole, there is no reason not to do it right now attitude. These people that we see setting examples are not people to be jealous of. They're people to take notes from. It's really important to understand that. Obviously, the other reasons why we procrastinate, habit and subconscious behavior. It's literally what habit is. It becomes subconscious. And people blame subconscious behavior for the reasons why we do something, because you assume that subconscious behavior is not able to be changed or controlled, and that is not true. It becomes subconscious when we allow it to, when we are not conscious of the subconscious behavior. So, however, on that note, we do have an influence over our subconscious behavior, because how do you think it became a subconscious behavior? We had to consciously make a decision to think that way, to behave that way, to then create the subconscious behavior. So obviously with changing that, and I mentioned this in the Forming Habits podcast, obviously to change that, we go reversies. So to change it, we actually have to come in with another conscious behavior to override the subconscious, and eventually it becomes the new habit. Lots of repetition and lots of very conscious, very purposeful change with the procrastination behavior. So obviously the reason why we procrastinate, or part of that, is because it's become the way that we do things. It's become habit. It's become something that we just fall into. Pursuit of perfectionism. So this concept that it's perfect or not at all can often see that you will procrastinate about completing a task or taking something on because you're so afraid of not doing well at it. You're so afraid of failing that you just don't. You don't even try. And so this whole, avoiding the thing that you are scared of sucking at ends up basically seeing that you never even attempted. And this is where I've seen some of the saddest stories with people missing their potential entirely because they're so afraid of looking silly, or they're so afraid of someone judging them, or they're so afraid of not being perfect from the get-go, and they end up completely putting it off as a result. Newsflash, no one is perfect. Perfectionism is a very ugly trait because if we chase perfectionism, we will feel nothing but constant disappointment when we aren't perfect, and that's not actually how life works. You could probably be perfect at something for a couple of seconds, maybe a couple of minutes, and eventually you won't be because we're human beings, we're not robots. I use this as comparison all the time in the rest of the podcasts. You can't be perfect, stop trying to be perfect. And sometimes taking on a task or taking on a goal means normalizing the idea of that. So another reason why we may procrastinate is that the task feels boring, frustrating, ambiguous, monotonous, pointless, unrewarding. Maybe unrewarding at the time or just unrewarding in general. Lacking personal meaning or intrinsic reward. So this all points towards this whole, well, the challenge, the hard task, that really sticky job that I know I need to do or that I want to do is just not fun. It's just not entertaining enough. I don't feel anything when I do it. I don't feel motivated to do it, and therefore I just won't do it. Not feeling motivated is the highest form of procrastination because motivation is a myth, and I've referenced this previously. Most very successful, driven, and I say that because being driven and being motivated aren't the same thing. Most successful, driven people are not motivated. They groan and moan internally, and they could think of many things they'd rather be doing. I would rather be on the beach right now, kicking my heels back than doing this vlog. But I know that this is going to help some people. I know that this is going to be a standpoint, a position where I can communicate to other people what can help them in their journey. And this is my purpose. Even though it is difficult, I love public speaking, but it's hard for me to sustain my thought process without getting distracted. So I can think of all the reasons why I could put this vlog off and not do it. Or I could think of all the reasons why I need to do it. And it's funny because none of them actually have anything to do with me. So this whole concept of it having to be immediately satisfying for me isn't there, and I'm not motivated to do it. I just do it because I know it's going to be beneficial for someone eventually. So how do we work on changing this? So for the last part of the vlog and podcast, I like to tackle nice and hard and fast the facts. What do we do? Okay, coach, you've basically ground me down for the past 40 minutes. How do we fix it? I don't like the word fix. I think fix is like a little bit too, it's too certain and exact and black and white. That's not the way I speak. I don't speak in those extremes. But how do we work on changing procrastination as an ingrained behavior and habit? Don't overcomplicate it. Stop overcomplicating it. Stop coming up with every bloody reason under the sun why everything is difficult or hard, or thinking of all the things that could go wrong or have gone wrong in the past. Stop making a mountain out of a molehill. Stop tangling the thread that you have in your hands and making a mess of it so that you avoid it altogether. Don't overcomplicate what is actually quite simple. Think about your time as a commodity. The more time you waste, the less you value your own time. Your time is a commodity. So if you were to put a dollar value on your time, do you think that you would behave differently with your procrastination, avoidance, and chasing everything that isn't something exciting? Isn't something that's hard, and you're chasing super exciting things instead? Do you think you would do things differently if you realized that your time means so much more than doing pointless things instead of the things that matter? Take the simple route if there is one, okay? E.g., don't go down every aisle at the shopping centre if you don't need to. Keep it simple when you can feel yourself getting scattered, okay? So if you feel yourself reaching for every, distraction and thing to do other than the thing you need to do, and you're running out of time, keep it simple. Go back to basics. Tell yourself, what is the most important thing I need to do right now first? And I love the whole grocery shopping comparison, because how many people go down every aisle and end up getting things they don't need and end up being at the shops for way too long, right? Stop doing that. Don't go down the aisle. If you don't need anything down there, don't go down there. Because unless you have a crazy amount of hours under your belt that evening before you get home to the kids or whatever, I'm pretty sure that the extra aisles could probably cost you an extra 20 minutes or half an hour, and that's a procrastination for whatever the next task is. Challenge your own thoughts, okay? Worrying yourself into this ball, as I mentioned, with the what if I fail, won't actually help you succeed either. Stand up to yourself. Like, stand up to your own shit for once. Instead of constantly defending the poor habits that you've ingrained, stand up to them. And stand up to this idea that you think that you are just stuck as a person who can't make it to the gym because they just never do. They just don't make the time. And that's just the way I've been forever, etc., etc. Instead of entertaining these thoughts, challenge them. You actually have a capability and you have control over your thoughts. It's a really strange thing. Even though they may pop into your head, you do have an option and a choice to counteract that with something else. So instead of what if I fail? What if I succeed? What if I do fail and make some mistakes? But what if I just get back up again? Having that angel and devil on your shoulder is a continual battle that you will have to fight for the rest of your life. But if you don't have the angel come in, you'll never experience what it's like to fight the battle, will you? The only difference between one person accomplishing something and someone else not accomplishing it is commitment, effort, and self-belief. So this whole, when you see people fitting it all in, making it all work, not doing things last minute, not being super stressed, being very organized, it's not a them and you situation. It is that they literally do this. They commit, they put effort in, and they believe in themselves. So that's the trifecta. It's not any sort of gift. It's nothing that comes to them. It's not like they're genetically different to us. They are literally committing themselves. They are putting in the work, and they are then continuously believing that they can keep doing that. Get firm with yourself and others. I talk about boundaries in other podcasts. If you find these slipping lately, get back on those, because often we can procrastinate because of the boundaries that we're not putting up with ourselves. So if we're saying to ourselves, oh, it's all right, I'll just do meal prep later. I'll watch a couple of these episodes of this series I've been binge watching. Oh shit, it's 9 o'clock. I have to go to bed. Shit, meal prep isn't done again for the week. Oh well. See how you are literally just steamrolling the fuck over yourself right now. Like, you're just going, oh well, everything I do right now doesn't mean shit because I just want to watch TV. And then you suffer the entire week because you haven't got meals to eat. So boundaries with yourself. Oh, I just want to sit down and watch these episodes. One episode once I finish my meal prep. Yep, no, that works. Cool, let's do that. Yes, have conversations with yourself, have arguments with yourself. Sounds crazy, it's not. So, organize yourself. Invest time to organize. People go, I don't have time to organize myself. That makes no sense. That actually makes no sense. You do have time to organize yourself, because if you did that, if you gave yourself literally an hour, not even that, half an hour to plan a diary, keeping it simple, when you do that as well, you don't have to get complicated. Give yourself half an hour to plan your diary on a Sunday. Do 3 weeks in advance like I do. Oh my God, then it doesn't have to be anything you do for another 3 weeks. You don't have to plan again because it's done. Put all your appointments in. It might be in your phone, it might be in your calendar, it might be on a whiteboard, whatever it looks like, so that then, oh my goodness, then you don't have any reason to put things off because it's right bloody there. And oh my God, I have 5 days to get this assignment in. I'd better start the assignment, literally write that in the diary or the whiteboard, start the assignment on the Monday if it's due on the Friday or Saturday, right? So giving ourselves these little reminders, getting organized, slotting things in, because people who are achievers, who don't procrastinate, have plans. We have plans. And we have to obviously make time to make those plans, but by doing that, we actually save ourselves that time because we actually have direction and we have structure. And then we don't have a reason or excuse to feel that empty, unplanned time with crap. Okay, another really big point, which is probably going to annoy a ton of people. I love this. I love annoying people. I don't really love annoying people, but another really important point, stop snoozing your alarm. I've seen this time and time again with motivational speakers and sleep experts. I don't know a single person currently who is in a very influential position who snoozes their alarm. I'll tell you why. A sleep expert I listened to recently literally mentioned that the average snooze time between alarms doesn't give you enough time to fall asleep. We know that because we experience it. I'm not silly. Alarm goes off, snooze, alarm goes off again. I'm like, oh my God, I felt like I didn't even sleep. You didn't. Your body doesn't fall asleep in that time. So you're fucking yourself over. You're convincing yourself that those 7 to 9 minutes are the best minutes in the world because I'm avoiding the day and I'm procrastinating about getting up. Truth is, it's actually really damaging to you and your attitude towards life. Why? Because when that alarm goes off, if you don't get up, you're normalizing the idea it's okay to just not care. It's okay to just give up. The second you've woken up, that's it. I don't even want to get up, so I'm just going to delay it. And then what do you think happens with your behavioral patterns as the day goes on? Oh, I'll get around to going to the gym. Oh, I'll go at 6 tonight. Oh, I'd rather watch the footy and then go. And all of a sudden you haven't gone. So this type of behavior with our alarm is the way that we start our day. If you just left yourself enough time, where you usually get up with a last snooze, you know that that's enough time to leave, make that your first alarm. I know you think, oh my God, that's a gamble. Make it your first alarm, and when that alarm goes off, tell yourself, if I snooze this, I'm saying no to my goals. I'm saying no to myself for what I deserve. And that's not okay. Stop snoozing your alarm. Make one alarm. I only have one alarm. I've only ever had one alarm. I hate having multiple alarms and having to snooze them. I think that once the alarm goes off, if you haven't organized yourself and you haven't slept properly the night before, there's a problem with your sleep pattern, not with your alarm. So, reduce the number of decisions that you have to make in the day, okay? So, for example, don't find more things to do when you already have enough, okay? And obviously, if you have more tasks that you think you want to do or add into the day, figure out whether they're a priority, shuffle things around and put the low priority tasks onto the next day. So delegate the lower priority tasks onto the next day so that you can get on with the project that you were meant to be doing that day. So do not find reasons and tasks to add into your day to make it more complicated. And if you spot yourself doing this, stop doing it. Put them on another day. Spread out your workload. You will have a much better time. You won't be as overwhelmed. You won't be as stressed. There's a reason why I do program updates, admin, marketing planning on a Monday for the business. Tuesday is content creation and anything left over from a communications perspective with clients, from the Monday. Wednesday is university study. Thursday is my client check-ins. Friday is my client check-ins, and my Saturdays and Sundays are my days off, non-negotiable. See how that structure allows for me to spread my work out across the week, and I can go to the gym every day. I'm not trying to put too much into the day and not trying to fatigue myself with too much decision making. So another way we can change the behavior, the procrastination behavior, is do not wait until Monday. Don't wait till I'm just going to start Monday. I'm just going to start Monday. I'm just going to start in the new year, start on Monday, start fresh. Start fresh with what? Start of a new week. What does that mean? It's the first day of the work week. Doesn't mean shit to me. Doesn't mean shit to anybody, really. You can start fresh whenever you want. You can start fresh tomorrow. You can start fresh on a damn Friday. Your attitude towards days is your attitude towards days, not anybody else's. The amount of weight that you give a Monday, the importance that you give a Monday. Why is Monday such a golden day? Oh, because it just feels like a fresh start to me. Well, that's like actually mind-blowing that you're waiting for a particular day to change your life. That's a form of procrastination, is waiting till Monday. The only person that can change that and change the way that you perceive days and the way that you perceive when you can start something is you. It's always been you. Nobody else gets to decide that except you. Next point, stop assuming or believing that everything that you do has to be fun, that it has to be joyous, it has to be a good time, or you just can't be bothered doing it. Stop romanticizing everything being awesome all the time. It's just so awesome. My life is amazing, but I have all these fucking things buried underneath that I'm not doing and I'm avoiding, but it's great. I know it's a joke. People think it's really funny avoiding things, like just sweeping things under the carpet. You know, my health risks, my health problems. So funny. It's not funny. Like, I don't find it funny. I don't find it funny at all. I think that people finding health funny is a way of avoiding and procrastinating about their health. If you want to die young, like, that's up to you, man. It's totally up to you. You can procrastinate about getting exercise and taking care of your health and nutrition. You can put it off. You can drink as much beer as you like until you basically justify why you have held off on addressing this for so long. But there are people in your life who care about you, and I can guarantee that, and that is one of the most selfish things you can do, is put this idea that everything needs to be fun and dandy and enjoyable and a good time and getting drunk and making sure that every moment of your life is nothing but pleasurable will very quickly lead you to nowhere, right? Because if we do that, if we live like that, we have nothing waiting for us in the future except temporary everything. Understand the concept of long-term gratification on that note for tasks that are difficult short-term. So you're less likely to internally want to avoid these tasks knowing there's an eventual payoff. Oh my God, if I actually address my nutrition, if I stop putting it off, if I just go to the gym and get some exercise, or if I just go for a walk, slowly but surely over time, I'm going to see changes, you know? The beer belly will start to reduce. My blood markers will start to improve. My diabetes, being pre-diabetes, not me, but you know, someone you love, might actually, and it will start to improve. You can reverse some of the damage, depending on what it is, simply by committing yourself to something that probably feels like a big pain in the ass right now, but the long-term reward and payoff is there. So it becomes much easier when you fall in love with the long-term rather than the short-term. If you can start that type of thought process in your mind, you'll be unstoppable. You will be unstoppable. One of my biggest secrets was removing short-term gratification from my life and implementing long-term gratification. It's really that simple. So obviously understanding the concept of investment, temporary sacrifice for long-term gain or reward. You invest now, you put the effort in now, you put the money in the bank now, you're going to have a ton of money in a couple years, okay? If you could do that continuously, it's the same as saving, right? So putting effort into your fitness and nutrition, the consistency that you put in with saving for something is the same consistency you put in with your fitness and your training and your nutrition and your mindset is a daily thing or a weekly thing. If you're not a very good saver and you're not very good at committing yourself to your goals, you've got a problem with this issue with investing. It's probably because you love these short-term fixes and you haven't figured out that these long-term goals are actually really satisfying, okay? So a short-term investment for long-term gain or reward. And that sacrifice is normal. Sacrificing things is a normal part of life, you know. We live in a privileged Western world where we have access to literally so many resources at our fingertips. We are so, I wouldn't even call it lucky. We were born into a position where we have access to some healthcare, yes. May not be the greatest, but we have access to healthcare. We have roads, we have running water, etc., etc. These are all the bare basics. But the things that we have to sacrifice or that we may need to sacrifice to achieve something long-term, it's not going to be any of those basic needs. This is the interesting thing. You don't have to sacrifice your running water. You don't have to sacrifice your hospital resources. None of the above. You know, you're not out on an army camp to try and get to your goals and change your career or make changes in your life. The sacrifices you have to make are minor, actually minor inconveniences if you really look at it and if you stop complaining about it. Another way we can work on it is changing our environment. So identify your daily distractions, the things that are literally causing you to procrastinate, or even so that you're using to procrastinate, I'll probably say that. Then distance yourself from them. If you're getting text messages every 5 seconds, put it on Do Not Disturb or put your phone in a drawer. You know, put it in the bin, hide it, get it away, put it on charge. I put mine on charge sometimes, and for me, that's my phone is in the naughty corner. So I'm like, right, you have been naughty today. You have been taking up a lot of my time. Mind you, it's mostly clients. you've been taking up a lot of my time, you're going in the naughty corner, I'm putting you on charge, and I'm going to go and do what I need to do for the day so that I'm not procrastinating, okay? So change the environment, change your office environment, put yourself in a position where you are not able to even find other things to do to then avoid doing what you need to do. Then continue with nothing but your tasks, your task list in front of you, okay? So have it right front and center, what you need to do right in front of you so you can't be distracted. You know, turn your Wi-Fi off if you need to, if you can work without it, but get yourself into a position where you can't even distract yourself. Even if you want to, you can't procrastinate because your work is right there. You can't avoid it if it's right there. Use this concept and thought process whenever you feel yourself trying to back out of something. You know, that whole it's like the sneaky back out, like I'm just gonna go and not do that thing. Okay, I'm getting very visual here with the camera. I'm just gonna go do the easy thing instead. Action now, right? I'm gonna say that really loudly. Action now prevents future stress and worry. Action right now prevents future stress and worry. The thing you've been putting off, doing it right now will prevent future stress and worry. There's gonna be something in your life right now you've been putting off. Go do it. I don't care what you do, just do something towards it now, right now. Right now. And if you're doing something else, do it after. Just give it 5 minutes. Give it a small amount of time, something towards the thing you know that you need and want to do. Action. Prioritize. What on today's list is most important? As I mentioned previously, prioritizing is probably easier said than done, but really it's just a case of triage. Okay, what do I need to do first? What's the most important thing? What do I need to get done first? Then literally order it like that. Okay, and no matter what the top item is, no matter how much you really don't like doing it, probably why it's at the top, because you've left it for so long. Okay, write shit down, type it, spreadsheets, lists, you name it, whatever the flip works for you. As I mentioned previously, get it on paper. As soon as it gets into your head and it starts distracting you and you end up paying attention to that instead, write it down, give it to another day, put it in your planner for somewhere else, long-term project, short-term project, whatever it might look like, but make sure you write it down because that can help you stay on task and focus on what you're actually doing. So plug the small components of your bigger projects into each week. This is something I've been doing for quite a long time now. So big projects I've gotten done over a long period of time, I've literally just taken small chunks off and plugged them into my week planner. That's as simple as it is. And if you don't know what that looks like, make a plan of that. Break it down and then add the small chunks in, depending on how much time you think it might take to do each one of those tasks. The next point, change the way you see deadlines. Deadlines is such a depressing terminology. It's a deadline. How many times have you thought about something being due and just freaked out and gone, oh my God, it's due, and shaking in your boots? Newsflash, deadline is just the end of something. So it's actually not the time to do something, it's the end. So it's basically the finish line in a race, okay? You don't start running the race when everyone else is at the finish line. 10 meters before the finish line, or better go. So if you saw deadlines as more of just an end, it's just a finish to something, you would probably see that all of the work that you need to put in leading up to the deadline is going to be something that you can do more realistically because you're not putting so much pressure on yourself to have this done on the deadline. So yes, have it done by the deadline, sure, but understand that you can and you should be actually ticking away at that, task by task as time goes on. And then the deadline, you probably might have maybe a conclusion to add in towards your assignment. You may have nothing to add in. You may get it in early for once, but give yourself the opportunity to do so without looking at a deadline like it is the scariest thing in the world. Just look at it as a time frame, not a singular day that is responsible for your demise. So the next one, sign out of socials. Do it as frequently as you can. I'm talking TikTok, I'm talking YouTube, I'm talking Insta, Facebook, every goddamn social media app you have on your phone. Sign out of it, and if you can't do that, turn off your phone, okay? Just for a couple of hours while you do a project. Just try it. It's so peaceful. Holy shit, is it peaceful. Sign out as much as you can. It will change your life. Something I used to do, I don't do it as much anymore because I have a lot of high communication with my clients during the day, was check all of my socials in the morning, give myself half an hour to reply and I didn't scroll at all, and then this is how you do a good detox. Sign out, do everything I need to do for the day at work, uni, etc., and then make my meals, everything like that, shower, and the last thing I do if I have any time left, even if I've got extra time after I've done something enjoyable for myself, is to give myself another half hour on social media. And that's one of the best ways that you can detox yourself properly, is by giving yourself a limited time so that you don't end up being on socials instead of doing the thing that you actually wanted to do. And trust me, everyone does it. Everyone does it. Delegate if you need to. E.g., if you don't like cleaning and you can afford a cleaner, and trust me, most people probably can afford a cleaner. Weird, I know. They're actually quite cheap. I have a cleaner, cleans my house for $100 for 3 hours. Awesome, amazing, right? An incredible cleaner. And I'm supporting a local business. I don't particularly like cleaning my house. I know that I used to like cleaning my house, but now I want to clean all the time. So what I've done, I get a cleaner every fortnight. She does a thorough clean, and that way I don't feel the need to constantly be cleaning all the time in between. And I've delegated that task. It's $50 for myself and $50 for my partner every fortnight, which is $25 a week to literally have a cleaner thoroughly clean my house. How good? So the next point. Do the thing you dislike most first. As I mentioned previously, that probably comes into the whole priorities thing, but if you're finding that it's recurring and it's the highest priority thing happens to be something you dislike, well then there you go. That's you procrastinating, avoiding the thing you don't like doing, and you have now left it last minute. So try doing the thing you dislike most first. My father used to make me do this with my homework. Do the homework you don't like first, because then it feels like a bit of a reward doing the fun thing last. It's kind of like leaving that taste in your mouth. Congratulate yourself. Self-affirmations, share your accomplishments with others. This can actually help you not procrastinate about something, because if you start tackling it, if you actually voice that and say to somebody, I've started a fitness journey, I've started making some changes with my nutrition, I'm noticing some changes, and you're talking about it, and you're kind of high-fiving yourself in this process, right? Like, hell yeah, I'm doing something that I had avoided for so long. I don't know why I haven't done this sooner. I've heard that phrase so many times with new clients. I don't know why I haven't done this sooner. Because you're afraid of it being worse than it actually is. That's why. Because you're so afraid of this looming task that is actually really quite beneficial for you and can be very enjoyable. So, congratulating yourself and celebrating your wins, however small they are, can actually get you out of this habit of procrastination, because you start to celebrate getting the hard tasks done. Imagine your life and where you would be if you didn't procrastinate. I would say that a massive chunk of my teenage years, I probably would be where I am a lot sooner. Where I am now, content with my business and everything like that, and being able to help other people, I'd be here a lot sooner if I didn't procrastinate. Obviously, my procrastination was something that led me to where I am today, but yes, my life would have been different. So maybe imagine your life if you just didn't procrastinate. And trust me, it'll open up this whole new world for you internally and externally. Watch what driven people do, as I mentioned earlier, and emulate the components of what works well for you from what they do. So I know I said earlier, take a leaf out of somebody else's book, but it doesn't apply to everything. If somebody wakes up in the morning and they train at 5 a.m. and you're like, yeah, I need to do that to be driven. Hell no, I'm not a 5 a.m. training girl, no thank you. But if I've seen someone do something that I know I can implement into my lifestyle quite easily, and I go, oh, that's a really good tip, I'm gonna do that. If I know that can help me not procrastinate, then yes, I'm gonna take it on. If I know it's a pretty easy thing to implement, and I know that I can see benefit directly from that, whether it be now or in the future, then yes, absolutely. Take a leaf out of someone else's book who is successful, who doesn't procrastinate. Spend 5 to 15 minutes doing the task that you don't want to do, that you know you need to do. And if you still don't want to do it after this time, stop and then move on to the next important task. Maybe come back to it later. But use that time frame as a way to get yourself into the task and give yourself 5 to 15 minutes. Just that's it. If you're still not interested, leave it. But most of the time, you're probably going to want to continue with it. Most of the time, this will encourage you to keep going once you are immersed. Okay, so this is probably what it is just focusing on what we're doing enough to start to figure out, hold on, I can do this. I've got this. Be aware that your life is happening right now. Do not assume that you have time to procrastinate. You don't. Newsflash, you don't have time to put things off. because we do not have control over time. We never had, okay? And the illusion of control over time is procrastination, because all you're doing is shuffling things around and putting all the important shit at the end. And that's not how you get to the places you want to be in life, is it? And I'll finally finish with one of my favorite sayings from my dear dad, who is part of why I am this way, why I got to a point where I realized that the way he operates actually influenced some really major parts of discipline in my life. Probably not in the early days when I was a teenager, but now certainly when I remember back on, the things he'd said to me. And this is a lasting saying. The best time to start is now. That's it, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Looking forward to doing another podcast for you soon. Thanks. Bye.